Alright, today is the Solstice Day. It usually falls on December 21st or December 22nd. That depends on leap year in our calendar. Actually, it's always on the same day. It's our calendar that messes up the days. Leap year is the lock in the box. Leap year is what allows the wheel in the sky to stop turning, and that we live in the now. They always try to keep it in the now instead of letting the wheel turn. So I want to talk about what I know about the solstice. It's the most important day of the year. Period. Hands down throughout history. This is what I've discovered. Like I said, I didn't start out as an astrologer. I would have laughed you out of the room even 5 years ago if you would have told me I would be an astrologer. And a good one at that. I just thought it was hocus pocus. But the more I began to understand alchemy, I understand that astrology is alchemy and alchemy is astrology. Today we use different words. Today we would use the word science is religion and religion is science. That's the same thing as saying alchemy is astrology and astrology is alchemy. Astrology is the religion. Alchemy is the science. And they're one and the same. They're exactly the same thing. And what it all is a process of nature. The zodiac is the alchemical magic circle of nature. And it takes us through the processes of alchemy as a planet, a species, a construct. We move through the mutable, fixed, and cardinal ages of earth, water, air, and fire. The beginning of the whole process happens in a few days. Today is supposed to be the saddest day ever. That's what I said. This is supposed to be not a day of celebration. Today is the day of the death of the sun. My journey began in language. I was very interested. I found language the most fascinating thing on the planet. Why do we all speak different languages? Our languages evolve over time. Where did they come from? What is this Bible bibble babble where the scribes scribbled the scriptures and divided the tongues? What does that mean? We all spoke one language and now we don't. So that the gods decided this, that we don't speak one language anymore. And learning alchemy taught me a language, which that's what it is. Alchemy is a language that deciphers all other languages because it is the source of all other languages. Today is the day of the death of the sun. In ancient times, astrology, science, alchemy was the only profession. It's like going to school. We go to school 12 years through primary school. We should be learning each constellation of the zodiac, whether it's mutable water, cardinal fire, fixed earth. Every one has something to teach us in our development. And we're not given that. We're just simply not given that. We're given the opposite of that, actually. There is a force here within our own ranks that wish to stop the alchemy, stop nature from happening naturally. There's another group within our ranks that are trying to propel us forward faster than alchemy allows. They're trying to cut corners on the process. And we all know what happens when you cut corners. You get a less quality product. So, today being the saddest day, looking through languages, when you dig back to the root of every tongue, everyone on the planet, you come up with the same thing. You come up with a set of symbols that were used in a ceremony, a ritual, around a campfire where the elders or grandpa told the story of the stars. They took the knowledge and embedded it into the heavens so that it could never be forgotten. It's there naturally, and it was superimposed over the stars so this knowledge would never be lost. So when you're told the story of the heavens, or you're told the story of the flood, or anything in history, it's all written in the heavens. It is a codex. The zodiac is a codex. It is an Akashic record. It's a record of the past, the present, and the future. Yes, we can prognosticate based on alchemy. But right now, in the scheme of things, we have to factor in the variables of the two within our midst, the one that holds us back and the one that seeks to propel us forward, instead of being on nature's natural road. I'll say this again, we do not evolve. We used to be a lot smarter than we are right now. They're trying to convince everybody that aliens came here and did this. No, we did this. And they don't want us to know that we actually, that's our knowledge, we're just rediscovering. Discover. Dis means to take off, take away. You take away the cover. You didn't find anything. It's always been there. You didn't discover anything. You just uncovered it. So, in all these little campfire stories where Grandpa's sitting around telling them the story of the stars, this is in every culture. Every single one. And you start at the beginning by lighting the fire. The word fire that we use in alchemy today comes from a word that is the first word God spoke in Genesis. Let there be light. That word light, it's wala. And it doesn't mean just fire. It means the light in the mind, energy, electricity, power. This word logo that we get out of the Greek also has that same, they translate it as power. The symbol, the word, logo. There's power in the word, there's power in the symbol, there's power in the words. That's why it's all a magic spell. They understood that one time I got evaluated every time I changed schools. They would send me in to be tested. They called them placement tests. That's what they called them. But it was all the same thing. It was an IQ test. I'd taken it so many times, I'd memorized. They have like 3-4 different versions of the same test, and I'd taken them all so many times I knew them by heart. And I was only going to get better at them. And so they would always give me these tests. And they ask you, when they first started giving them to me as a child in elementary school, they were very different from the ones you take as adult. The ones you take as children, they're trick questions. They're not hard questions, they're just trick questions. Example, a farmer had 17 sheep and all but 9 died. How many did he have left? Most people are going to jump right up and say 8. No, the answer is within the question. He had 17. All but 9 died. So how many's got left? 9. How many animals of each species did Moses take aboard the ark with him? 0. Moses didn't sail an ark. There were no animals in the Ark of the Covenant. Noah sailed the ark. Trick questions, that's what they do. They're to see if your brain is analytical. Can it see in the details? Or are you just regurgitating? To me, what they did was they were looking for those of us that the programming didn't take. I would dissect everything the teacher said, word for word. So I'm into the details. I'm going to see the problem within the question, the answer within the question. So, every tribe around the world had a set of symbols. Well, to start with, before the Bible Bibble Babble and the scribes all screwed us, we spoke one language, and that language is alchemy. Period. There is no other. It's made up of just a handful of symbols we call sigils, and everything is created from that. You actually have three symbols. You have the straight line, the curvy line, and the dot. That's all you have. You start with a dot, and then you pull your pencil across the paper and it makes the straight line. Then you can take the paper and twist it or make the line start going curvy with the pencil. And those are the three main sigils, just like in alchemy. I want to throw in here XX and XY. These are our chromosomes. XX is female. XY is a male. He's missing a leg. He loses a leg. She has the other leg that he doesn't have. Everybody's either born XX or XY, and we have a very small 0.0% of people that are born with both. We call them hermaphroditic. They're born that way. What's going on now is a complete distortion of what alchemy is supposed to do. Like I said, we don't evolve, we mutate. We mutate. And mutation, evolution is a word that we understand. It starts at the bottom and it only can go up. It only can expand. Evolution, more. But mutation can go either way. You can mutate up or you can mutate down. And that's what they're doing. We have one group trying to mutate us up and another group trying to mutate us down. And here we all are in the middle on the saddest day that ever existed. In the stories that were told, the story always began right here on this day. And it was called the story of the death of the sun. It's the oldest story ever told. Older than the flood, older than the dinosaurs, older than anything. This is the first thing, the first event that ever happened on this planet. It's always happened. It will always happen. That today the sun dies, which means it stops moving in the heavens. It doesn't go forward anymore. It stops from our perspective. And it stays there for 3 days. That's the same story as Jesus is in the tomb for 3 days and he rises on the third day, which is we calculate from the 24th to the 25th, the 23rd to the 24th, depending on leap year. And we call that Santa Claus, right? That's Christmas. Christmas is the birth of the sun. Christmas, I'll say that again, is the birth of the sun. People ask me what I think about Christmas and all of that. What is happening in the Protestant religion when we look at the New Testament? Like I've said, the New Testament teaches us how to survive Pisces, but its story is that of Aquarius. Pisces is a story about John the Baptist is the sacrifice for the age of Pisces, not Jesus. Jesus is the sacrifice for the age of Aquarius, not Pisces. John brought grace. I'm going to say that again. When we look back, Aries is the law. Moses. Pisces is John the Baptist. You baptize with water. It's the age of grace. But Christ, the Christ, is Aquarius. And it has nothing to do with this age. But it has everything to do with what's coming. We live in a very screwed up age because when I look at Pisces, I see the Vatican, this star right here. I see the Old Testament church. They have the black and white words. They still worship the God of fire. And then we have the New Testament church. They have the red words. And they're trying to get over here into Aquarius, the King of Kings. And to me, this is the Catholic Church. And this is the Protestant Church. The Protestant Church brought in Santa Claus. The Protestant Church brought in the Christmas tree. The English language root, its source is German, period. And these stories come from the German, the Deutsch, that whole group, the Brothers Grimm, all of our fairy tales, all of our stories, everything that we have in what we call English has its root in German. German goes back to the G. When the G swaps languages, it changes sounds. The G can make a G in our language. It makes a K in Arabic. But in Spanish, it says ha. And it don't say G or K, it says ha. Like the J. The J, Jesus. George is Jorge, right? The G is going to say ha. So German becomes Herman. Mount Herman. The Olympians have always been the Germans. The Germans preside just inside Europe, over the Caucasus Mountains. And that's one faction. The other faction are the Khazarians that are also Russian Asian, Euro-Asians. You have Eurasians and Caucasians. Well, these same Olympians from Mount Herman, now we know not just who, but where. We've been lied to so much. If you don't do the work yourself, you're never going to find the truth. So, all of this Christmas stuff, the Christmas tree, everything about it is perfectly okay for the next stage. That's going to upset a lot of people. It's going to upset a lot of people that are religious on the Jesus train and they don't have a clue. They know not what they worship. And on the other end as well, this is what I believe is that what I've uncovered, is a truth I can accept for myself. You're going to have to do your own homework for your own truth. I'm just sharing what I uncovered. And this is what I uncovered. Santa, let's go back over here to Christmas. Santa comes on Christmas to bring presents. And he does it in the night. He comes overnight and puts them in the stockings. So that clue right there lets us know when you wake up in the morning, the gifts are there. The sun is moving. That's your gift. That morning when you woke up, the sun has now moved in the other direction. Not only did it stop in the heavens, but now it's turning around and it's perceived ecliptic and going backwards. That's why you have the double arches of McDonald's. The double arches of McDonald's are an alchemical symbol. Burger King. Burger. Wow, that's such a German word. Sausage and burgers and all this ground up meat that they press back together. That's such a German thing. And I know now we have this image of German Nazi Hitler, Third Reich, Fourth Reich, and that can be very scary. That's the other side of the same thing. That's the same coin, but the other side. We need to learn how to stand the coin on the middle. That's what I'm telling you. I'm not left or right. I'm independent, right down the middle. I don't agree with either one of them. I have my own path. Why do I want to go down the broad way where everybody else goes? My path is very narrow. It's mine. It's my cross. I walk it alone. And if you want to get off the big wheel, you're still going to find yourself on your own wheel. Even if you do get off the big wheel of it all. And you still have to traverse that wheel. But when you walk your own path, then you have the best chance of the proper mutation, the proper alchemical initiation and transmutation. So, the day of the death of the sun, the oldest story, the first story ever, was the day the sun died. And then 3 days later of it being born again. They rewrite this story through history, through the different cultures. It comes from the same root story that we were all told, but in a different way. Back when the languages were all one symbol, we had one story, and it is this one. But it has mutated over time. The scribes scribbled the scriptures and gave us Bible, Bibble, Babble at Babylon. So we must unscribble. And the answer is within the question. What is today about? Today is not a day of celebration. A lot of people say, Happy Solstice Day. This is the day of tears. That's what this is. It's not a happy day. It's the day the sun stands still. And we can look at it as a great thing, really. If you want to choose to look at it that way, but in tradition, through all of the traditions of all of the different cultures around the planet, to every single one of them, this was the saddest day of the year, because the sun died, and the sun is the giver of life on this planet. Nothing can survive but rocks and dead water without the sun. It promotes the energy in electricity. Speaking of electricity, let's talk about the fifth element for a minute, because people are confused. The ether, that's what they call the ether. No, that word in alchemy, ether, it's the same word as air. It's pneumatic, and it's the same word as air. And that's the coming age, but it's not the fifth element. That's just a mistranslation. The fifth element has to do with energy, and it is the word thought. When you have a thought in your mind, it produces an electrical spark. All things come from thought. When you say, let there be light, you have a thought. That thought of the word light actually produces a light thought energy in your brain. Neurons firing in your brain. That's what's going on. You have the proton, electron, and neutron. Back to the X and the... I know I'm all over the place. Y'all know how I work. This is the way my brain does it. You have the firing of the neurons in your brain. So you have 3, right? The woman rules 4. The man rules 3. She rules, the feminine rules earth, water, air, and fire. And the masculine rules fixed, mutable, and cardinal. When you bring them together, you get the 7. That's just a alchemical process. Now, currently, we're in an alchemical process over here on December the 25th, 24th, depending on leap year, when the sun begins to move again, is where we have let there be light. First day. That's the first day. Today is actually the last day. The day the sun dies, the last day. Then we have 3 days of darkness because the sun does not move. And then the first day when the stone is rolled away and he walks out of the tomb. But now he's headed in the other direction. He goes the other way. So in alchemy, you have processes. You start with your prima materia. You take your material and you pound it down to nothing. Like your prima materia is going to be a tea leaf right? And you're going to put it in the pedestal and you're going to just pound the hell out of it. That's kind of what happened when they crossed the Red Sea and went into the wilderness of Zen, and they walked in the desert for 40 years. Just pound them. It's dry. You dry it out. You pick the leaves off the tree and you lay them in the sun to dry. And then you take them and put them in the pedestal and you pound them down to nothing. And then you add in the elixir, or we would use today like a pure grain alcohol, and to distill it. You put it into a stage. Well, let me do it this way. It's like my mother's family were all moonshiners, and it was called corn mash. And what you do is you take the corn and you mash it all down while it's wet. You do not dry this corn. You do it while it's wet, freshly picked. And you mash it all down and you add sugar. Back in the day, they would have added honey. In original alchemy, you added honey. The sugars start the fermentation process. We're forbidden sugars. We're given artificial sugars. We're told how awfully dangerous sugars are, when it's funny that the food you eat, the insulin your body produces, turns that food into sugar because the brain works and runs on sugar. Isn't that weird? So, in the alchemical process, when you add the sugar, then you coagulate it. It starts to coagulate and ferment. And that's the age we're in. We're in the age of coagulation and fermentation. You add the sugar so that the spirits can ferment. And you get good spirits and bad spirits. And it settles. And then you let all the mash goes to the bottom. And you drain off the liquid on the top. The first thing you do is scrape the scum off the top. Then you have different layers down to what you call malt. And you begin processing it, or distillation. You have the coagulation, the fermentation to the distillation. And this is where we're at. We're at the distillation part, where the water is taken up into the air, and it's called vaporize. That's what we call it today, vaporize. So you can see how it's not that alchemy is science. Science is alchemy. It's not that religion is astrology. Astrology is religion, and they're all one thing. And it's been separated. We have it's the same separation as church and state. That's the same separation. Jupiter rules the church. Saturn is supposed to rule the state, but Jupiter's been ruling the state this whole age because it's his age. It's the age of Jupiter, the age of empire, the age of expansion. But all that's coming to an end. All of it. The empire dies. I haven't seen the new Star Wars. I haven't seen the last few Star Wars. I've not seen not a single one of the Disney put out Star Wars. But I've seen plenty of commentaries on them and how everybody hates them. And I'm kind of getting along with what's the storyline and how they're trying to twist everything. They're bringing out the Force is feminine. No, it's not. The Force is neither masculine or feminine, but what you do with it makes it masculine or feminine. It's just energy. Electricity is just electricity. It's what you do with it that makes it masculine or feminine. So it's a big fat ass lie. I know that much. But we are in the end of this age, so it's a time of distillation. The process must complete. It's called refinement. Refinement. And so what do the powers? They know that only so when you have that mash, like I said, you scrape the top off. It's just fluff. It's all that stuff that bubbles up on the top. Say you left food sitting out on the counter for 3 or 4 days and it gets that film on the top. And then you have the mash on the bottom. Well, the spirits, or the part you want to distillate, is in the middle. Now I want you to think about upper class, lower class, and middle. The lower class is the malt. The upper class needs to be scraped off, and the middle class needs to be distilled. And that's what we're doing. Those in the middle. And they're trying to eliminate the middle class. Everything that whether they're pushing us forward or holding us back, the two factions that are trying to manipulate the process, regardless, what everybody's doing is just all based on alchemical processes. It's just they see it in a different way. Now, you can refine something over and over again. To get the finest wines, the finest alcohols, they're distilled several times. Distillation is a process that can be done over and over and over again till you get to that 99.44% pure. That's how we rate pure, is 99.44. There's no such thing as 100%. It just don't exist. There is no such thing as 100%. It's always, you max out at 99.44. And that's considered perfection in our flawed reality. Okay. So, the death of the sun. Today is the day we weep. We mourn for the sun. In the Bible, it reminds me of, is it Ezekiel? Isaiah, who's at the temple. They're at the temple, and all of their women at the northern part of the temple, and they have sackcloth and ashes on, and they cry for Tammuz and the sun. And then you have the 70 elders that are standing at the eastern gate, worshiping the rising sun. And God tells the angel to take the inkhorn and go mark them. Go mark everyone. And the ones that have the mark are destroyed. No, the ones that have the mark in the Old Testament are saved. The ones that have the mark in the New Testament are destroyed. That's the difference. They flip it. So, we're at a time, this is a very German time. It's a very German time. Germs, German, Herman. It's all within itself. The Asians mixed with the Germans. That's what happened. Abraham was out of the land of the Chaldeans. That's Asia. And he went into Africa. And then he came back into Asia, into 12 tribes. And then 10 of those tribes went over the Caucasus Mountains. One of those tribes, Dan, mixed with the Germans. So the Danites, or the Danish, became Danites when they mixed with the Germans. At Mount Hermon, the Olympians. That's how it translates out. If you don't agree with me, that's okay. You can have your own translations. In this, there really is no right or wrong. There really isn't. Because even though I'm on my own path by myself, if you look at my path, you're still looking at it from an angle. You can only see what's in front of me if you're looking through my eyes. So I know even when I'm looking at somebody else's path, when I do your chart, I'm looking at your path. But I'm looking at it from an angle because I'm on my path, not on yours. When I do the charts, I try to step into your shoes and see it through your eyes. And I connect with your chart. Your chart, your alchemical circle, is perfectly in attune with your higher self. Yeah, with your higher self. And my higher self will connect with your higher self when I do those charts. When two people are talking to each other on a telephone half a world away, their higher selves are in contact with each other. You're thinking about somebody and the phone rings. How do you think that happens? There is no distance. There is no space in between. That's all just an angle of looking at it, a way of looking at it. Two people can be so connected a mother's so connected with her child that she knows the child's going to be in an accident before it happens. He's not listening to his higher self, so the mother's higher self is going off. Ding, alarm, something's wrong, what, wrong. And the mother starts to feel sick and she don't know. And then minutes later, there's a car crash. How do you think that happens? There is no separation. Not between you and your higher self. The only separation is the wall that you build. We call it the veil, and it is the flesh. That's the only thing that stops you and prevents you is you. Not your circumstances, not things around you. The flesh is ruled by Jupiter, which is desire. It desires to live in comfort and peace and harmony, and it likes excitement and thrills, and it hates to be alone. It hates to be alone. The flesh is so codependent, it's insane. So when you get to that place where you connect with your higher self, you're no longer codependent to other fleshes. Your flesh doesn't need another body around. It really doesn't. You're more likely to be the cat lady or have pets or something, right? You're going to connect with the animals better than you will people when you're on the right path, when you are on your path. When you're walking to your own tune, other people are not going to like you. So don't think you're going to make friends. This is not about making friends. Being here, that's not what this is about. What this is about is perfection. Because that's what alchemy does. It brings out the best of a thing. It distills you. It refines you till there's nothing left but 99.44 pure you. The pure essence. That fifth element in its pure thought, which is pure energy. It's neither XX or XY. It's the blend of the two. When you bring the XX and the XY together, you get the child, the third. Tri-state, tri-cities, everything is in threes. Fixed, mutable, and cardinal. We're in mutable water. Mutable water and mutable earth are the two biggest changes on the whole alchemical circle. And we got one above us and one below us. Because it's flipped, it's more like we're in muddy water. Virgo and Pisces. This is the hardest age to navigate because it's mutable. It demands transmutation. It demands change. None of us want change. You get to that place in your life where you're happy. Oh, I finally made it. I'm here. I got the job, the family, the home, or I made it to retirement. And nope. Your life's going to fall all apart because this is about change. This is about mutation, transmutation. And if you're not forever trying to better yourself, and not on other people's standards either, your higher self knows the 9944. It knows the pure standard. It knows the straight and narrow path. When you say, take up your cross and follow me, it's take up your damn zodiac and follow your higher self. Not mine, not somebody else's. I need to pause. I'm thirsty. All right, I want to talk about an alchemical process for a minute to help you understand something. And how alchemy works. And what its purpose really is. Back in the early 80s, cocaine was really huge all over the United States. And this was before crack. And everybody would rock up their own crack. Crack wasn't sold on the streets. You had to get pure cocaine, a good quality powder cocaine, and you put it through the alchemical process yourself. And to do that, you would take the cocaine and mix it with baking soda. And baking soda crystallizes. It forms into a rock when you add the heat to it. Okay, so it takes all the impurities out of the cocaine. It grabs all the pure parts and it throws it into a rock so you can smoke it. You can literally take it right out instantly and smoke it. And so the catalyst is the baking soda. The baking soda, the prima materia, is the element you start with, and then you have to have a catalyst. Like sugar or honey. Honey was the original catalyst to make beer or wine. The sugar in the grapes, it was built in, right? You had barley for beer. The first harvest was the barley harvest. And so all these, to get these processes going, it works in two ways. One is the distillation, and the other is the crystallization. And to me, what they're doing to us is crystallizing our pineal glands. I bought a steam cleaner, a Pet Heat Pro, for my carpet for when Kelly has accidents in the carpet. And I wasn't happy with the pet products that they sell, even the natural ones. They weren't getting the smell out. So I decided to clean my whole carpet one day and threw some OxyClean in it. And when I went to clean my cleaner out, it was full of crystals. It had crystallized. OxyClean was full of baking soda, and immediately I knew what happened. The same thing that would happen to the cocaine. It would crystallize out. And so now my whole system, all my little tubes, are stopped up with this crystallization. Because had it been a regular vacuum cleaner, no problem. But I had the Pro Heat. And when that heat hit the baking soda in the OxyClean in the water, it crystallizes. So you people that are putting OxyClean in your washer and hitting it with hot water, that's crystallizing that OxyClean, and it's going to solidify in your runoff tubes. Your drains are going to get stopped up, and then you're going to have a flood in your floor, because OxyClean is baking soda. So don't waste a bunch. It's just baking soda with some kind of fragrance crystals thrown in it. So don't waste your money on OxyClean anymore. Its main active ingredient is baking soda. That's how I learned that. So processes, crystallization, and we call it calcification. You calcify your pineal gland. That's what they're doing to us. They're giving us the opposite process. Now, what you do is you take pure grain alcohol that already is a sugar-based product, pure grain alcohol, and you drop the cocaine in it, you add the baking soda to it, you add the heat to it, and in a matter of seconds, you have crack. And that's how freaking easy it is. And that's how easy it is to crystallize your pineal gland. It can take seconds. But the decalcifination, or the other process of distillation, this takes a long time. The destruction is quick and swift, where calcifying the pineal gland is. But the opposite, the alchemical process, the mutation we want, is a long, drawn-out, painful process. It's not easy. Nobody ever said it was going to be. As a matter of fact, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, but once you actually achieve it, you realize it's the easiest thing ever to do. Because you really only have to do one thing. There's only one thing required, and that's to let go of all fleshly and worldly desires. It's for your higher self to now take control of the body. And that's what happens in Aquarius. Our higher self, which is ruled by the ether, thought. It's energy in motion. Thought is energy in motion. The fifth element. Love is a thought. Everything starts in the brain. Words. People can say words to you, and your heart can... I hate you. Somebody you thought you loved more than anybody in the world, and they look at you dead in the face and tell you they hate you. That's all in the mind. the body reacts. The heart starts beating fast. You get a knot in the pit of your stomach and you just want to puke. There has to be a separation there to where those words don't faze you anymore, because you're not your body. You're just thought. You're just your mind. It's all you are, and it's all you can take with you when you leave this place. So do store your treasures in heaven. Back to the saddest day of the year. Saturn, Jupiter, the war's on. This is what I call the great dance of the heavens. And all three of them are in play. Saturn, Jupiter, and the Sun, all in Sagittarius. This is all about philosophy and ideology. This is the big battle. And it's Jupiter's house. And Jupiter is going to appear to be winning. It'll go back and forth until the final showdown happens next year in Saturn's house. A year from today, we'll be right dead in the middle of the final battle. For at least the next 28 years. 28 to 32 years. Saturn runs a 36-year cycle this time around. So, we can expect very big government control, less religion, less empire. Governments around the world will gain power, whatever their source. Ours is supposed to be power to the people. Some governments have monarchs as power. Some governments have tyrants, despot. So it's all going to be about government. So the battle now is about philosophy and ideology. And you see, it's taken a big flip. But we know empire loses in this one. So, and when you look at empire today, the word that comes to mind is globalists. The globalists lose. I'll put it to you that way. They lose from 2020 on out for about another, say, 30 years. To where they're just done. And they're literally going to do it to themselves. What you do is nothing. You let go. You do nothing. You want nothing, you do nothing. That's the way I opened my pineal gland. I was grieved. I didn't want to be here anymore. I don't want any part of this flesh. I don't want any part of this lvt script. I didn't want none of it. I didn't want any of it. But I was told that, okay, you don't want your script, but what about the rest of them? Don't you care about them? And right back in I came. Because, yeah, I did care about them. But had I been strong enough to not react, I could have been out of here. I already let go. I didn't come back for me. I didn't want any part of this shit and still don't. But I came back for the children. And we're all children. I don't care how old you are. Some of the biggest babies I know are old people. Very entitled, very demanding. You owe me. I done this for you. Well, then you did nothing. You did it for yourself. If I owe you, then you did it for yourself. You need to remember that. I can't stand people that give you something and then tell you how to use it. I constantly... if the homeless man's going to ask me for money, I'm going to give it to him. And I used to get bitched out for that. He's just going to take it and drink. So? What if he does? What if he does take it and drink or take it and do drugs? That's not my business. Once I hand it to the man, what he does with it is his business. But I hate people that give you gifts and then tell you what you can do with it. They haven't given you anything. And think about that when you give gifts to others. The gift is something, 1, not asked for. 2, no strings attached. That's what makes it a gift. Otherwise, you can't put that title on it. Then it becomes a bribe. You can do this with it, but. Here's this, but. No, that's a bribe. Our words, the English language, is a big-ass spell. It simply drives me bonkers. It always has. I've been complaining about it from the beginning. Why do we drive on the parkway and park in the driveway? It just don't even make sense. And I argued with my English teachers every year. Why? And they constantly told me, I don't know, Levette. Finally, in the 6th grade, I had one teacher tell me, I know what you're asking me, but I don't know how to explain it. So what I'm going to advise you to do is take a foreign language. And I did, and my journey began. Immediately, within just 2 weeks in the class, I already had my answers. I already knew why we need to know the difference between a noun, a verb, a subject, a prepositional phrase, any of it. Why we needed to know that. Because English was different than any other language on the planet. It's a constructed language. Every other language on the planet puts the subject before the verb. The verb before the subject. We put the subject before the verb. We flip it. Just like everything else here. And remember, our root is German. Hitler and them knew something. But they're not that Ish bloodline. There's no such thing as German-ish. We've been through the Ishes. When God, in Genesis, when God created man on the 6th day, that word man is Ish. And we have, we have 13 Ishes now because of Yiddish. But we have Irish, Spanish, British, Scottish, Finnish, Danish. You have the Danish split with the Germans, so they became Danites. You have the Ites, the Ishes, and the Ians. Remember that. There are the 3 groups. The Ites, the Ishes, and the Ians. So you got to be an Ish. That's why they're throwing that word around. He's sex-ish, blackish, orangish. The new Ishes, right? It's a spell. It's a spell. Saddest day of the year, death of the sun. We're supposed to mourn and put on sackcloth and ashes and weep. This is a day of sadness throughout history until we come to our generation. The death of the sun is now a solstice celebration. Go figure. The celebration is what we call Christmas Day. When you wake up and you have the gifts of the sun. The sun is now going to give us the gift of spring and the gift of flowers and the gift of fruit and food and agriculture. Agriculture is ruled by Saturn, by the way. All your food, the god that brings forth bread from the earth, that's Saturn. I'm so tired of having to defend Saturn from the demonization of Jupiter. When it's Jupiter, Jupiter's the narcissist. And what the narcissist does is project their evil off onto you. They tell the lie and then point at you and tell everybody else you lied when you told the truth. That's what a narcissist does. They cannot manage their own life, so they have to manage everybody around them. That's the Vatican, is Jupiter. They serve Job. They are the voice of Jupiter on this planet. And they cannot rule themselves. They can't even control their own sexual organs. But they think they should tell every government on the planet what to do. Because priests crown kings. And now they're in the banking business, right? When they opened the Vatican Bank, Satan began ruling in there. Period. Money is not evil. It is the love of money. Greed. More. Mine. It's like giving that homeless man the $1 but telling him he can't buy alcohol with it. He's got to buy food. That's greed. How dare you? We'll pull a Thunberg on y'all. How dare you? So, here we are at the death of the sun. A day of sadness. I'm going to count it as a day of joy. Because today you're going to learn something. And any time we're bettering ourselves by learning something is a good day to me. Any day we can understand something better even a little bit is a good day. And every day can be a good day. Every day can be a great day. It's what you make it. It's your perception. The day, if today is an ugly day for you, it's because you chose to look at it that way, and you don't have any fingers to point at anybody but yourself, because you're the one in your mind. You're the one that decides. And you can have a happy day, and it's easy. It's just letting go. Just let go. Because none of it matters. It just simply doesn't. If you're going to love, then truly love. If you're going to give, then truly give. Love has no strings attached. Love loves even if you're hated back. Love is love despite of whether it's love back or not. Love is a giving thing. It's a verb. It's not an adjective. Oh, I love you. No, it's a verb. It's something you do. It's not something you feel. That thing you feel, that's called lust. That's part of the flesh. That's part of the body. But love, it doesn't feel. It does. It does something. It gets up and it does something. All right. I don't want to leave y'all without anything to do. Every one of you need to download Stellarium. The link is below every video. You need to download Stellarium. You know, if you'll just do this for yourself every day, if you'll just do it, and then go into meditation and tell your higher self, I'm trying to connect with you. Can you please connect with me? You can set up a signaling system. You know, I deal with people all over the world. Before I learned all of these different languages, right before I turned 16, I moved to Houston, Texas, which is an international city. Because of the oil companies, there are people there from all over the world. Every part of Houston has its own little community, and they have their own little languages that they bring from their home countries. And I loved being in that environment. I loved going from one tongue to another and moving in and out of these groups. And I would have them tell me their traditions and their stories. And I would listen to the way they pronounced their words and the way they used their throat and their mouth. And it was phenomenal to me. The first time I was there, I spent 5 years there. And it was the most learning experience I'd ever had. The second time I lived there for 3 years is when I picked up Arabic, and everything changed for me then. All the languages started to wake up, especially English. I had already learned Spanish and French in school, and when I took Spanish in school for 2 years, and then when I moved to Texas, a lot of people there speak Spanish, and I was lost. I learned real quick, this is kind of a Tex-Mex slang. And what I learned was how to speak to people in Spain, not people in Texas or Mexico. That's a different language. Just like the people in England and the people in Australia and the people in America all speak English, but we all have we use the same words in a different way. It's like I'm from the South. So my English is extremely different, say, than somebody from Boston. We have the same language, but we use it differently in our mouth and throat. We say the vowels differently. Those are really the most. The variables are the vowels. In language, the consonants are the constellations. There should be 12. And each one has 3 different sounds. Like we have a sound that we use called cha. That can be a G, a K, or an H. Because it's guttural. It's in the throat. They're all made the same way. Ba, pa, fa, va. The BPV, they're all made with the front of the mouth and the tongue. What makes the vowels different than the consonants is the front of the mouth stays open. You go A, E, I, O, U. You never close your mouth. It's always open. To where consonants, at some point, you close the mouth. It cuts off. B. It stops. But vowels, when you make their sound, they're electrical. They're eternal. They can go on forever. Ah, E, O. It can just go on. They're thought forms. They're symbols in alchemy, and their frequency lasts forever. They're eternal. We have some consonants that mimic this, like R and S and Z, but then you have those that stop T, B, F, G. And it's the same thing. It's a zodiac. The zodiac is an alphabet wheel for all of the languages, but we lost the connection as to which one goes where. That's what I'm trying to do, put it back together, because it tells the story of the heavens. The vowels are the variables. They are the planets. There are 5, and then sometimes Y in English, right? That's 6th Y planet. But the A-E-I-O-U, in the Native American tongue, they call God E-I-O-A, and it has been confused with Yahweh. But if you listen carefully, it's just all of the vowels, the E-I-O-U-A. The E-I-O-A, and it's the vowels. They're the variables. The circle itself is the consonants. As the vowels move through the consonants, remember how they call God Ea? He's the E and the A. Ea, Asher, Ea. I'm the E and the A. I'm the Yod, hey. Yod isn't even really, in English, a Yod is an apostrophe. It's a tilde. A jot, a tittle. Not one jot, not one tittle shall change from the law. The law. Yod. And we've been through this. I've told you, there's no such thing as Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. It's Yod, Hey, Vav, Chet. Look at Hey and Chet, and you tell me. Yod, Chet, Vav, Hey, or Yod, Hey, Vav, Chet. But it's not Hey, Hey. They're hiding earth, water, air, fire. I am nature. The Great Pyramid was called Neter by the Egyptians. We get the word nature, nurture, enter. It's NTR. You put the E's there, you get enter. You put the A's there, you get nature. You put the U there, you get nurture. So, in the big scheme of things, we're in the process of distillation, coming from the water of Pisces vaporizing into the air of Aquarius, while on the death of the sun, the saddest day of the year. Today the sun stands still. In astrology, when a planet stands still before it goes retrograde, it is at its most powerful point. So we can look today as at the death of the sun, but you can also look at it as its most powerful point. And you can also know the mother's fixing to go in labor because the son's going to be born in 3 days. And then we can celebrate. You open the gifts. So to me, I see nothing wrong with Christmas. I didn't have Christmas as a young child. My mother just didn't want to do it. But after we started school, my dad kind of forced the situation. And I guess pressure from her sisters and stuff too. But to her, it was a money-grabbing thing, and she's very greedy and didn't want anybody to have anything but her. To her, no, she didn't want to spend all that money. She had 5 kids. Christmas to her was devastating. Even if you only got everybody one thing, that was still pretty pricey to her. But as we got a little older and it became, every year we started putting up a tree. And I had an attachment. We had the tree with the star on top, not the angel. We had the tree with the star. And I was attached to the star. I had a great connection with that star. Now I understand the tree. It's the evergreen. It has the star on top. It's the sky. It's the twinkling lights all in the sky. And that one star that stands out above them all. The guiding light for the coming age that represents our pineal gland, our higher selves. We're the trees. We're all the little lights on the tree. The presents are under the tree. There's nothing wrong with Christmas to me. It's not anti-Christian. The only thing that's anti-Christian is the church, because they won't get with the program. They won't look up. They looking down in their books. They're being pulled to the pit and altered. I don't know how many times I can say that. The pulpit is at the altar. The answer is in the question. They're going to pull you to the pit and alter you. Churches are there to alter you. Your heaven is your brain. You store your treasures in heaven or your memories. Make good ones. Make good ones. Make happy memories. If your life is bitter and you're facing one struggle after the other, then you can pretty much presume it's because of you. I do. I realize my life is an entire battle. If it's not one thing, it's another. But you know what? I already know. I wouldn't have it any other way. I want to get out of here. I want to be in the top percentile. And if I'm an egomaniac about that, then that's my problem, not yours. I don't compare myself with other people. I'm competing against my higher self to be the best that I can be for me. And I don't compete with you. And I do take criticism, and I can also take compliments. I've always been good at taking criticism. I had to learn to accept a compliment. I didn't know how. I had to learn to accept gifts. I didn't know how. I had been really shortchanging myself my whole life because I knew how to give, but I didn't know how to receive. And if you only have one part of that, then you're losing. It took me forever to learn how to receive and do it. I don't know, for some reason, if somebody did something for me, I felt shame. When I was growing up, I didn't understand. I felt unworthy of it. I felt shame. And I realized, it took me a long time to realize that was part of the programming. That was there to keep me. That was really, the church done that to me. The church told me that. Yeah, and that was my choice. My family was not religious. I was never forced into a church. But when I was young, when we first moved to the city off of the farm, the bus would come around with the snow cones, and they'd give you the free snow cones, and then they'd invite you to come to the park and play a game of softball, and they'd gather up all the kids and give them hot dogs and snow cones. And then they would invite you to Sunday school, and then before they know it, they're picking you up for Wednesday night. And I remember I got saved. Yeah, I remember it was the first time I went to a Wednesday night service. I'd only done Sunday school. I'd never been in the church with the preacher screaming, getting red in the face, you're dying and going to hell. And I had this, it's the only time I was baptized in a Berean Baptist church. And like I said, my family's not religious at all. Nobody in my family went to church, but this couple started picking me up and taking me, and they'd given me a Bible, and I read it. I was horrified at the Old Testament. And by the time I got to the New Testament, I was quite relieved. And I realized these are two different gods. They're not the same. Even Jesus said it right out of his mouth, that your father and my father are not the same. Your father was a murderer from the beginning. And so I got the two different gods. But God is just a title, by the way. It is not supreme being or supreme authority. So one Wednesday night, I'm sitting in the back on the left-hand side in the pews. And an altar call everybody's got their heads bowed, they're all praying. And an altar call happens. And to me, this is the most supernatural thing that ever happened to me in my life. Because I stood up but I didn't stand up. I was taken down the aisle, but my feet never moved. Everybody was looking down, and from my perspective, I was floating down that aisle. I never took a step. I could never say a word. I was bawling my eyes out. I couldn't even speak to the man at the end of the row. He come off the pulpit, and he was down at the bottom. I didn't walk up the stairs. I didn't go to the pulpit. He was at the bottom, and I couldn't say anything. He would ask me questions, and all I could do was nod. No words would come out of my mouth. Everybody else's head was down. He saw. I know he saw because of the look on his face, because he was horrified at me coming down that aisle. I was the only one. A small girl, I was 9, maybe 10 years old. And everybody's head's bowed. He's looking me dead in the eye. I'm crying my eyes out, and I'm realized that my feet are about a foot off the floor. My feet are not even on the floor. So, I go through all of that, and they set up this little thing that I need to be baptized. So that's what all of that was about. I had to go through the baptism. It's part of this age. Just like every time you leave one age into another, it's an initiation rite. They had to pass through the Red Sea to get from Taurus to Aries. You had to pass the Jordan River to get from Aries to Pisces. And then we had to pass the great oceans to get from Pisces to Aquarius and Capricorn. You had to cross the Atlantic, the big water, to get from one age to the next. The next age, South America is Aquarius. North America is Capricorn. Pisces is Europe. Aries is Asia. Taurus is Africa. Gemini is India. And I could go on. Everything about everything is all written right above our heads. We simply have to look up. Ooh, I'm getting cold. Let me pause for a minute. Alright, before I go any further here, I want to back up and punt. It's like my higher self tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you need to clarify this. So let me clarify for a second. I was never a drug addict. I learned how to do all kind of alchemical things with drugs back in the 80s because that's what everybody did. I know how to prepare psilocybin mushrooms. I've done that pretty much. By the time I was 20 years old, 18 to 20, I had tried just about all of it. I have a problem with amphetamines, uppers. I can drink 1 cup of coffee, 2 cups, and I'm shaking. So I don't do well on, I don't like uppers. I never done a lot of coke, but I dated an Arab for a couple of years, and he was heavy into cocaine. All of them were. They loved cocaine. They were buying it by the kilos, and I would rock it up. Some of them would want crack, so I'd make crack for them. They would take a half a gram of just dry coke, not even cracked up. They would put it in their cigarettes. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of time doing that, but I didn't do the drugs myself. To me, when I lived in Texas, I don't like uppers. I don't like to walk around shaking, all wired up. I hate that feeling. It's terrible. They had just banned Quaaludes in the United States, so they were flooding out of Mexico back then, and they were called mandrakes. There's like only 3 places in the world that still make methaqualone, and that was a big con job so that because it's non-addictive, right? Opiates are addictive, so they banned methaqualone so everybody could get addicted to opiates. I remember going to the doctor one time, telling him I'm in pain, but I'm allergic to opiates, and he says, you're shit out of luck. And I'm like, no, I'm not. There's one thing on the market that doesn't have opium in it. And he said it did, and I said it don't. So we had a fight, and I won. He finally went and got his PDR, and no, there is one chemical that they use because methaquinone was banned, that doesn't have the addictive properties or any opiate derivatives or synthetics in it. And it's called butalbital. It's an analgesic. And what it does is numb your frickin' brain out. That shit like killed me. It numbs everything out. When you take it, it's like being drunk. It's an inebriant like alcohol. I don't even like alcohol. I can't stand it. I was a bartender for over 2 decades, and I was a good bartender because I didn't drink my checkup. Everybody else around me were drunks. All right, got that cleared up. No, I'm not a drug addict. By the time I was 20, I realized real quick, I don't like drugs. I don't like alcohol. I like being in control. I liked marijuana because it calmed me down. If I got too bent out of shape and stressed out, it was my go-to. That's what I liked. And even today, there are dispensaries all around me. It's no longer legal out here, but it's no longer illegal out here. But that was my go-to drug. As a matter of fact, I was a grower for years. For years, I always saved seeds and always growed. We grew a lot of our own. I always had a couple of plants somewhere every year. I don't think I can get in trouble for that now. So, saddest day of the year. At least that's the story, right? When you look back into all the traditions and you go back to the beginning, what's the first story? Where does all this come from? It all comes from the very first story, which was the death and the birth of the sun. Just like it is in our New Testament. The astrologers just wrote it in a way that because it'll last forever. The Bible is an alchemical astrology book. It's not a religious book. And all of our pastors are wolves in sheep's clothing. All of them. All of them. All. I can't say that enough. They've been deceived themselves. They cannot see the truth. They're blinded by the flesh. They're not serving their higher self at all. They're serving Jupiter, which is desire. They're serving Mercury, which is commerce. Mercury and Jupiter are the gods of this age. If anybody is this Jesus character that they're trying to shove down our throats, it's Mercury, as Jesus, the offspring of Jupiter. Not Thalum. Here's the real Jesus. The real Savior. Your star, your sun, your higher self. And it all channels through the sun. And it's all the story of the heavens. Beginning with the birth of the sun and right now it's unique. We get to see the sun birthed in the Milky Way. It's not always been that way. Our calendar is so off, they still have us with the winter solstice over here in Capricorn. You look at if tropical astrology has Capricorn beginning December the 19th. So yesterday was the first day of Capricorn, when actually yesterday, about last week, a few days ago, was the first day of Sagittarius. That's how off our calendar is by an entire zodiac sign. It's pretty bad. That's why we're still worshiping this God of fire in the churches, the God of the law of the Old Testament, instead of being this fish and trying to get to the red words. I've done the videos. They're all on Inside 33. You can start with 3-lock box and rolling back time and what they're doing to the calendar that keeps us living in the now or the past, but never allows us to go into the future. Y'all need to get with the program of this alchemical magic circle and realize what it really is. And it's a natural process of what we call nature. Nature is bringing us to become one with our higher selves. During the ages of Aquarius and Capricorn, these two are one. Saturn puts all things under Fomalhaut. Fomalhaut and Saturn are one. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. They both are ringed. So both of these are one age. North America and South America will be one. We had NAFTA, that fell apart. Now we got the USAMC, something like that, USMCA, whatever they're calling it, the new draft, where the two become one, financially anyway. This is, actually, we're only doing it with Mexico. This needs to extend to South America. All Trump is doing is uniting North America. We need to extend this. We had it done. It was set up, and the globalists came in and changed it. They got rid of Pan Am Highway, and they got rid of Pan American Airlines, and they got rid of anything Pan. Somebody made a comment to me about Peter Pan. Peter Pan is Dagon. He's half fish, half man. It's half Pisces, half Aquarius. It's between the two ages. He's a hybrid. He's half Jupiter, half Saturn, just like us. We're Peter Pan in this age. And the imagination, now that's Neptune. Neptune, imagination, to me, other than Saturn, the most important planet. More important than Venus in the heart is Neptune, the imagination. Because without it, there's no creativity. Nothing changes. Nothing. Neptune is very important. Also misrepresented. They want to put Poseidon, the name of Poseidon, to Neptune. No. Poseidon is Jupiter in this age. That's Poseidon. And you have the Kraken of this age. Here's the Kraken. This is the Kraken. Jupiter is Poseidon. And it is Medusa, Algol, that ugly, the most evil star that turns the Kraken to stone. That's religion. And indeed, Catholicism worships stone. They're statues. They're icons. They're images. Even though the God of fire forbids imagery, at least of anything of heaven and earth. You can have any images of fire and water you want, but no heaven and earth by that God. He hates them. He hates Saturn. Mars hates Saturn until Mars comes into Saturn's house and he's exalted. Because in Saturn's house, Mars ain't going to be doing no war. He moves from like a war state to the Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers. That's Saturn in control of Mars. But right now, Jupiter's in control of everything, which is 100% desire, lust, want, not need, not need. Needs. Jupiter does not care what you need. He cares what you want. There's power in that. Especially with Mercury ruling commerce. But we're not in the next stage yet. We're still in this miry mess of Virgo and Pisces. Quicksand. Don't build your house on this. This is quicksand, this whole age. Don't build your future, your house there. Build it on the rock. There's the stone in heaven. You know, when you add the cocaine to the pure grain alcohol, it dissolves it. And it looks horrible. It looks like you've lost everything. You take this tube, this flask, and you put the alcohol in it, and then you dump a gram of cocaine in there, and you watch it disappear instantly. As soon as it hits the grain alcohol, it's gone. And you're like, oh shit, what a waste. And then you throw the baking soda in, and then you set the fire under it. And within just a few seconds, you watch it all grab back together and form a rock. No distillation, that's calcification. The different processes of alchemy. And they're calcifying us. And they use alcohol to do that. Ooh, Mars in Libra. Mars moving into his own house coming up here. That's going to be good news. Let's find that date. Let's move Mars up and see when he's going to move into his own house. On the 7th. So from the 7th, great positioning there for Mars, especially with all this mess going on, because now he's going to move your emotions. Mars is going to move into the hero, right? Hercules being that hero. Make love, not war. Make love, not war. So that's going to be good. And the sun, combust Mercury, no information getting out, but between Saturn and Jupiter. So we're going to have a mediator in this battle. The war is between Saturn and Jupiter, which is the flesh, Saturn, and your spirit. I mean, the flesh, Jupiter, and your spirit, Saturn. And the sun himself is going to stand in the middle. This day is the day of the love of my life. Was born 10 days before me on January the 7th. Sagittarian. So, interesting day there as Mars moves in. This is actually going to be a good day. There's going to be, like I said, the sun standing in the middle. An authority. The hero. Standing between the two. Channeling that energy. But all this is going down in philosophy and ideology. It's all about belief systems. Venus getting ready to move into Aquarius out of Capricorn on the 7th. The moon in Taurus on the 7th. That big magic there. What hour? We can even get this down to the hour. Oops. Ooh, big magic right there. On the 7th at 9 a.m. and the moon is going to be opposite Mars. Interesting day. Big ritual going down on that day. They always do their ritual. There are 12 different guilds or lodges or mystery schools, one for each of the constellations. And the Taurus one, which is the Black Lodge, the Fixed Black Lodge, big ritual for that day. Part of Freemasonry. Freemasonry runs Taurus. And this age as well, because you have white Pisces and black Virgo. It's the black and white feminine age, being crushed by the patriarch from the previous age. That's what's going on. Is Jupiter hooked up with Mars here? And we're going to get that Mars-Jupiter hookup over here too, which really upsets me about the song The Age of Aquarius, because when Mars and Jupiter meet, it's supposed to herald in the Age of Aquarius, and that's bullshit. I'm here to tell you, that's bullshit. Nope, you don't want your emotions and your desires to be hooked up together. That's when we get war. Interesting day on the 7th. I've been thinking about my friend a lot. I haven't seen him in years. He got deported. He got busted with 7 kilos of cocaine back in 1982, and they deported him. He thought he was going home. He thought he could just leave the country and get away with it, but they extradited his papers. His mother called me crying, blaming it all on me, and I'm like, I don't do the shit. I wasn't even there. Our relationship had been over by the time he got in trouble. I had nothing to do with it. But mothers always need to point a finger somewhere. And she did. She pointed it straight at me. And nobody done that to him but him. Taking responsibility for your actions. That's the best thing you can do for yourself. Until you take responsibility for your own actions, you're never going to advance into the future. Ever. You're never going to grow. Never. You have to realize, I don't care what goes on in your life. Nobody's responsible for you but you. I understood that very, very young. I understood that. That was one of the first things I understood. Was my mother was trying to make me constantly do something. The sexual abuse and all that was going on. I knew it was wrong. it was against my will, and I'm being forced to do shit I don't want to do, that I knew was wrong to begin with. But you have, and I explained to her, look, you want me to do this, but in the end, I'm the one that has to answer for it. It's my soul. So you want me to do what accommodates you at the detriment of my own soul. And I understood real quick, real early, that when Judgment Day comes, nobody, you can't point the finger at anybody. It's not allowed. You can't point the finger anywhere but at yourself. That's something you need to know. Because when Judgment Day comes, it's your higher self judging you. You will be ashamed of yourself. I've experienced that too many times. Somebody left me a comment and asked, did I experience out of body when I went down in the grocery store? No, I didn't. But I don't think I was near death either. The people that were there at the cash register, the lady at the cash register and the other people in line said I had a seizure. And I guess that's what they saw. I guess when you go down like that or you have an aneurysm, it looks like a seizure. I've seen it happen to my dad, and I've seen real seizures too, where the person just wasn't there and the body's doing its thing. But like when my dad had an aneurysm, it wasn't like that. He was trying to talk to me or trying to communicate, but he couldn't. And it would have looked like a seizure. But it wasn't. They're different. A seizure, I guess the blackout's already happened. I had a friend I grew up around several people that had seizures, and they never knew it was coming. It would just instantly happen. I had another friend that would do the blackout thing, like the fainting goats. This girl would faint if she smelled blood. Boom, she'd just hit the floor. If you said the word blood, she would just hit the floor. Her eyes would just roll back in her head and down she'd go. Any amount of pain. She passed out. She went to use my bathroom one day and passed out on the toilet because it hurt. She had a cramp and it hurt to poop. And I found her dead, turned blue, between the cabinet and the toilet. I had to drag her out, and she had collapsed her lungs when she fell between them. That was a scary experience. But I've seen the difference between somebody having a seizure and somebody having an aneurysm. It's that fade out moment to where seizures, it's just instant, no warning, just happening. But no, it was like just somebody turned off the lights. Everything just started going dim. But I felt in pure, I didn't feel like I was losing consciousness. It just went dark. And I guess when it went dark, I went down. Took half the candy shelf with me. Run my buggy into the lady in front of me, which was my cart. I didn't have the big buggy. I had my little black cart. And I run it into her, and everybody was happy about that. Couldn't blame me. It wasn't like I did it on purpose. I just went down. And they said they saw it happening to me, that I was bouncing. And they thought I was stressed out. I wasn't stressed. I was just in pain. But no, I didn't have an out-of-body experience. I didn't have any experience. It just, everything went black, and the next thing I know, my foot hurts, and I'm opening my eyes because my foot is killing me. And I've been through a lot of foot pain in my life. I've broken this same foot about 5 or 6 times. One time I was playing racquetball with somebody, and they come down on my foot and broke it in 5 places. I had a cast on from my toes all the way up to the crack of my ass for months over one little bone that broke in 5 places. But it carries all the weight in your body too. All right, I'm so digressing here back into the past. Let me pull it. Let me pull the date. Where's my... Come on. Pull us back to our winter solstice here. The story of the death of the sun. And in 3 days we get the birth of the sun. And all of the stories that are told in every religion around the world are about this day. It's the first story. It's let there be light in 3 days, but this is the story that's told around the world, and it marks the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere and the shortest day of the year in the southern hemisphere. A hemisphere, half the sphere. Oh, I'm wondering why the moon was there. I'm here. There's the time. All right, people. I'm going to cut this video here. It's an hour and a half long. It's going to take a while to process and all day to upload. I know that for a fact. It's going to take hours, even if I've got a good connection. I might get a little better drive. It works better during the day because the kids are at school. But when the kids come home from school, they're hooking up their Xboxes, their PlayStations, and their phones, and that little what we got just can't handle all. It just slows down to nothing. So maybe I can get this uploaded before they get home from school this afternoon. They ain't even left yet. They're not even up yet. It's going to take this a while to process, but I'll get it there. All right, that's my story on the solstice. It's the oldest story. It's the beginning of it all. It's where everything comes from. All religions, all science, everything comes from the beginning of this story right here of the day of the death of the sun. And now we get the birth of the sun out of the Milky Way as well. Like I said, they've got everything happening over here in Capricorn. They don't get to see the miraculous. They're not experiencing the miraculous birth of the sun out of the Milky Way. And that means we've come full circle. That's what I want to say here. We've come full circle because when soon, how many years? Let's pop the sun. It's in Sagittarius. Let's go up years. How many years? One degree is 72 years. And we have the retrograde motion. It should be 3 degrees. 216 years. It's still calling it Sagittarius. There we go. Whoops. There we go. And 2203, the sun will be in Scorpio. To me, it's going to be before that, but this is based on the new sidereal that Stellarium is using. The winter solstice will be in Scorpio on 2203. And you see it's dying before it gets into the Milky Way. So as it moves then the 4 celestial points of the spring equinox, the summer and winter solstice, and the spring and fall equinox are on the fixed cross. Right now, to me, we're already there because 621 is already in Taurus. It's already there now, today. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, in 2017, on the summer solstice, was the first year that the summer solstice occurred in Taurus, which moves us to the fixed cross. So we have one of the 4 legs on the fixed cross. You can see it's a crooked cross the way they've got it, because they keep changing the dates. But one thing that is a clear marker is always the Milky Way. That's the clear marker. We can take away the images, and it's the biggest thing in the sky is the Milky Way, especially at the winter solstice. And as we get over here into the summer, you can see it fades out to just that light blue. And it just makes, it has a circle of its own. We can just follow it around. Put our image back and follow it. And you see who all, Cygnus runs through the Milky Way. Is that Cassiopeia? The woman in the mask? Who is that? Not, okay. Interesting one there. And that's how it's done. The beginning and the end are the same place. And it takes 3 days to go from the beginning to the end. From the 21st, 22nd, and born on the 23rd. The morning of the 3rd day. Just like the Christ. So, good timing. To me, this goes perfectly in line of this is the story of the risen Christ on the 3rd day. So, great time for meditation for the pineal gland. It's the death of it now, but the resurrection in 3 days, or the 3rd day, 21, 22, and then 23, or 22, 23, and 24. The birth of the sun. All right. And soon, when everything moves and we're finally in Aquarius, when we move into the age of knowing, when we've completed the process of distillation and we're all vaporized into this etheric, pneumatic, spirit world, it's going to be so different than now. It's called the Golden Age. Above our heads, everybody will worship the sun, but it won't be worship. It won't be worship. Regulus will be in the sky because Fomalhaut will be with us. If the sun is in, the sun rising in Fomalhaut puts the earth in Leo. The sun rising in Leo puts the earth in Aquarius, and vice versa. So, and the sun is ruled by Leo. So it will be the sun. And we will realize the sun is, we will finally really get some real solar energy, solar wind energy, solar winds. That's going to be the big one. It's not just the sun and light, it's the solar wind, because we're talking about Aquarius and that word pneumatic, that air power, that etheric air power of Aquarius. We will also realize the sun is a portal, and that when you talk about you want to jump from one star system to another, you do that by going through the sun. This is how we get here. For those of new on my channel, you need to go back and watch Video Letter to Joan, page 1, 2, 3, and 4. We get in our bodies by coming through the sun. We're light beings. We're thought. Thought is light. It's electricity. It's energy. It comes through the sun, into the eye, and then into the brain. And it leaves the brain on the death of the body. But the sun is going to be center focus. And Christianity, all religions are really against sun worship. And they don't have a clue what they're talking about. They've been so lied to in the past 2 ages. The priests, the scribes who scribbled the scriptures, ever since Babylon, ever since the dividing of the tongue, them taking a perfect alchemical language away from us and giving us this crap. And now this spell-cast English that comes from a German, Herman, Olympian language. It's crazy. But alchemy is the true language. It's a language of symbols. That's what you need to learn. And it starts off with 4 little ones. Earth, water, air, and fire. In the Hebrew, Yod, Hey, Vav, Chet. And I won't even argue with that point. If you haven't understood yet that, just one thing of Yod, Hey, Vav, you understand nothing. Kelly's wagging her tail at me, telling me it's time to, you need a Scooby snack? There you go. I'll give you 2. Is that good? You're a good girl. I love her so much. She's getting so fat and lazy. You can tell everybody hello. Can you tell me? You just gonna huff and puff at me, ain't you? She's a good girl. I love her a bunch. She's a big old spoiled rotten baby. Hey, you. Hey, you. All right. I'm cutting this here, people. Y'all have a great day. Think about what I've told you. You prepare yourself for not the solstice or the death of the sun, but the resurrection of the sun. Celebrate Christmas in a new way. When you look at that star on top of that tree, understand that's Fomalhaut on the top of that tree, or it should be. That's what you need to understand, that you are the tree. We are the tree. We're the lights on that tree. We're the stars that are in the heavens, and our guiding light, our main star that brings us into the celestial port is Fomalhaut, representing your pineal gland. And you know, in the next stage, the flock moves here. This is where the flock goes. We're no longer sheep. We're a flock of seagulls or a flock of birds right under the pineal gland. And the Indian, representing Capricorn and North America, South America. It's all here. It's just been scribbled. It's a puzzle that just needs to be put together. And when you find yourself, you'll find this. When you find this, you'll find yourself. It's all quite interesting. I can't believe I've made it this far. I'm kind of quite stunned. Like I said in my last video, it's just a few weeks now, and I would have outlived every member of my father's family because they've all have PKD. I'm the only one that does not have it. I do believe I was born with it, but I believe when I opened my pineal gland, it done something to my DNA. It done something to me. It changed me. And I am different than anybody in my family anyway. They're all real tall. My parents have green eyes. They have dark hair and green eyes. All of my siblings have blonde hair and blue eyes. I have one grandparent, my father's mother. She's really tall, flaming red hair and green eyes, like Wilma Flintstone. She looks like Wilma Flintstone. All she needs is the bone in her little bun on her head. And her name was Wilma. My grandmother's name was Wilma. And then my mother's father, he was tall, blonde-haired, and blue-eyed. So they get that from the grandparents. When I look like my grandmother, on my mother's side, which is, she's about 4'10", little Indian woman, olive skin, dark hair. So I've been the odd man out in my family from the beginning. I was the scapegoat in my family from the beginning. The only thing that made me different was the fact that I remember before I was born. I remember coming into the body. So in my circumstance, I've always been awake. I've always known none of this is real. And that if you knew who you were, if you knew what we are, we wouldn't treat each other the way that we do. And the only thing that I could ever hope for humanity is that you remember. And your higher self, when you connect with your higher self, is when those memories come flooding back. The hippocampus, the seahorse, represented by Pegasus, the winged horse, is your memory in the brain. It's the memory part of the brain. And he comes back on the white horse, bringing all your memories with you. And you remember. And it's so simplistic. It's just like a child that wakes up and goes, "Oh, I get it." I remember the first thing in school I ever got wrong. I was in the first grade, and I was so far ahead of the rest of the class. I could read, I could write, I could do arithmetic. I could write in cursive before I started school. And the teacher asked me a question, "What are the primary colors?" I'd never heard of this. I'd never heard of primary colors. So I just said red, white, and blue. I didn't know what to say. It was the first time in my life I had to make a guess because I didn't know the answer. And it turns out it's red, yellow, and blue, right? Not white. The black and the white are, black is all colors. It's all colors mixed together, and white is absence of color, or blanco, blank, no colors. So black is all the colors, and white is none of the colors. And ironically enough, when you mix all the colors together, they're not really black. They're kind of a brown. You get brown. But nonetheless, and that's what we're doing. We're making the world a brown place. There are no brown people. You have to understand it's red, yellow, black, and white. Just like the primary colors in alchemy, red, yellow, black, and white. There's no blue and there's no brown. You get brown by mixing black and white, yellow and black. You can get brown a lot of ways. But that's how you get the brown. There's the red man. The red man is represented by North and South America and India. India is Gemini. Its color's red. They're the same as the North and South American Indians. They're really dark complected red man. They have the long black straight hair. That's red man. It has nothing to do with red hair and Ireland. It just don't. That all falls under the skin tone is white, therefore they're Europeans under Jupiter. This alchemical, it's a straight line that was hooked into a Mobius strip and wrapped around the planet. I know which way it goes. Archaeology, architecture, all that tells us that. I was not only interested in language, I was also interested in archaeology. And I have my own understanding of how all of this works. And it's all based on alchemy, which is it's perfect. Alchemy is perfect. When you do the experiment and you're making the crack, it's the same every time. The only time you'll get a different outcome is if you have impurities in the cocaine you're using. Your rock won't be as big. Same thing. It's going to clean out the impurities. And that's what we're doing right here, right now, in this time of history. We are at distillation. It is to clean out the impurities, to solidify the coming together, the two becoming one. It's a process of nature. It's perfectly natural.